Hello guys and welcome to another sololevelingarise video. In this one I would like to cover the basics about Sung Jinwoo, so things like stats, skills or runes, blessing stones, weapons, and what preferences are there in each area. Also a little bit of gameplay so that you can know a common pattern that can be applied in almost every stage. So yeah, stick around and let's get started. For stats, what I did in the early game was to go all in on strength, but then after a while I decided to go with perception based on what I was reading on the discords, and perception allows you to have more reliable damage, so it's a stat that I prefer to have once you reach, let's say, mid game. So in order to know how to get a very high perception, you need to go to this lens looking icon on the top right, and you will see stat details. On stat details you can see the percentage of certain stats. Precision is one of them, and precision is a level dependent stat, which means that with each level you will need a certain amount of precision. As of level 75 I need 182, and the amount of perception that you will need to get 99% will increase per level. As for the rest of the stat, I use strength, and strength will increase my attack. Artifact selection, you would like to have only offensive stats. So in an ideal gear set, you would only want stats like the ones shown in the screen, and I will analyze each piece that I have currently just to show which piece has the X amount of good stats and which ones are bad. As a preference, I will always try to upgrade pieces that have at least 2 good substats and are purple level 50 at the very least. So in the beginning of the game you might have some blue pieces, and that is completely fine, but upgrade them only until plus 10. Once you get better pieces, then you can replace them slowly with purple or yellow pieces that have 1 good main stat and 2 good substats. So this first piece, it has a good main stat, which is attack percentage. You can also have additional attack in here. The first substat is, it's not preferred because it's not offensive, but it can help a little bit, but it's not the preferred stat. Additional attack is a good stat, additional HP not a good stat, and then critical hit rate. So as you can see, I have 1 good main stat and 1 good 2 substat, and I had the luck that it only rolled on the good substats. For this second piece, I have damage increase, which is a good substat, additional attack, and critical hit rate. As you can see, the 4 rolls went to the good stats, so this is a good piece. As for the next one, I have critical hit rate, attack percentage, and damage increase, which are really good substats, and then 1 in damage reduction. Replacing this piece will be a bit difficult. There is a point in the game where if you have at least 3 good substats and they rolled well, then it is a difficult piece to replace. It will always depend on which stats you need, so maybe you might need more critical hit rate or less, and then you might get a better piece, but this you will do with time. So as you get better pieces, you will replace the previous ones with better gear. This is how you will get a better builded character, and you will also have more damage output. As for the last piece, this is a critical hit damage one, which has additional attack and attack percentage, and the other substats are not very interesting, but the good thing about this piece is that it rolled on the preferred substats. As for the right side, we have the first piece, which is a very good necklace. It has 4 preferred substats and 3 rolled in attack. So very good piece. This one very hard to replace. As for this one, there is a specific thing about bracelets. It depends on which is your main weapon. My main weapons, as in the weapons that I use most, are the scythe and the plum sword. This might vary depending on your draw lock, so you should select the type of damage that is beneficial to you. That would be in an ideal world, but there could be cases where you have better substats here, so you might prefer using a piece with better substats over some piece that has a certain amount of damage that you would prefer. So let's continue seeing the substats. So this one has critical hit damage and additional attack, which is preferred substat, and then two that are not good. This should be easily replaceable, but again, this all depends on luck. So it's fine to have pieces like this until you find a better one. Next one is the ring. So the ring has an additional attack, which is a good main stat, and then it has two good substats: defense, penetration, and critical hit damage. The other two are not preferred. And then this last piece has three good substats and three rolls in the proper one. So attack percentage is a preferred substat, critical hit damage as well, and additional attack too. For runes, runes are, well, skills that you get throughout fusion. So you have a fusion functionality in the game, which is here, and as you get these rune fragments, you will be able to do fusing of skill runes. The skill runes will be skills that you use throughout the game, and you will be able to perform different things with different benefits and different element damages. So let's start looking at the basic skills. The first one is double slash. This one I barely use, so I cannot comment so much about it. Next one is crushing blow. Crushing blow I have used for certain scenarios. The most useful scenario for me is with the dark version. So if you have this rune, you can use it to do a heavy break, which is going to be very useful against bosses. So when you counter attack, you will do a heavy break. If not, then you do a light break. This is a decent skill for breaking. It offers mostly medium breaks, but the damage is not so good. This dagger toss I rarely use, so cannot comment as well. And then multi-strike. Multi-strike does have a lot of very good skills with decent modifiers, and it does medium break on most of the skills. So I use this skill a lot when I have the good version of that element, especially the dark one. The dark one is quite good, and the light one as well. So the light one as well resets, and you will see that skills have different abilities. It's good to read them and see which ones give you a really good benefit. That way you will know based on your case, because not everyone has the same runes, so selecting the best ones you have is in your best interest. The next one is vertical arts. I rarely use this skill as well, although it does have some good ones which have decent multipliers, but this is more of a mob killing kind of skill. So for bosses, I'm not sure how good is it. Then we have Cutting Rush. Cutting Rush has two good ones, which is Effulgence and Sunder. So these two skills you want to use when you want to do more burst damage and you don't have the proper elemental skill. These ones will give you a really good benefit there. Then we have Vital Strike. Vital Strike is also another skill that I rarely use. At least the ones that I have are very neutral element, and I think 50% additional damage is really good to pass by the other elemental skills. So since most are neutral, I rather use something else. But this could be based on my current rarity of skills. So it will depend on everyone's personal case. As for Mutilate, Mutilate has I have two good skills for that. One is the Cold Storm and the other one is Stroke of Lightning. In general, the skill is good for dealing damage to area, to a group of enemies. But the reason why I started using it was because of Cold Storm, because of the dot damage that it provided. The other versions, I personally have not used it so much, so it will depend again on your case. Next one is Death Dance. So Death Dance to me is the best basic skill. Well, it's between Death Dance and the Commander's Touch, but I'll cover that in a bit. So in most of the stages that you will face, you will see several bosses with a break gauge, and this one provides heavy break on almost all versions. So Commander's Touch has a really good one, which is Black Hole. Black Hole you would like to use for stages that have mobs, and you can use this purple area that you can see here in order to attract these mobs. They will gather and you will be able to use DPS in that specific area, which is really good for eliminating mobs faster. So this is the best part of Commander's Touch. It also has other area of effect skills, but I don't use the other ones. I mainly use this one. So QT skills. The most important one is Shadow Step. This skill is used as the start of a lot of combos. So you will see things like doing Extreme Evasion, then doing Shadow Step, and once you do Shadow Step, then you start performing certain combos, which I will cover a little bit in one of the gameplay sections. This skill I upgrade because I use it often, so even if it's a small amount of damage is good, but I wouldn't prioritize it over the basic or the ultimate skill. Then we have Collapse, which is a skill that does knockdown and airborne. This one is alright, but I don't really use it so often. Same with Death. Death is also a good skill. So these are two skills that you can combo when something is knocked down. So you knock it down. Once it's knocked down, you can do airborne, and when it's airborne, you can do a knockdown again. That's how these combo skills work. Finally, we have Mutilate. Mutilate is a very good skill. It has a very high multiplier. The power gauge required to trigger it is high, but it's a really good skill that can help you finish off enemies whenever you are lacking damage. It's good to combo this kind of skill, so you will want to use it when the opponent has certain debuffs so that you can get the most out of it, but this will be explained further in the gameplay guide. As for room priority, I would first prioritize the ultimate skill, then I would do Death Dance and Multi-Strike, and then I would choose between Commander's Touch and Mutilate depending on the runes that I have. After this, then it's more your choice, but most basic skills that I use are Multi-Strike, Death Dance, Commander's Touch, and Mutilate. As for QTE skills, I level up Shadow Step a bit just because I use it a lot. Then Collapse and Death is more your choice. If you see that you are using it a lot, then the extra damage level up can be good. So Blessing Stones will depend on the level that you have. After certain levels you will get more slots, and they are quite rare to get. So for my selection, I usually use the ones that I have highly leveled, which are good. I will go one by one and then give you my opinion. So sharp perception is good if you want to increase more crit rate. If you want to guarantee crit rate, it's quite good. This one is a nice damage increase with no penalty, but the enemy needs to have 70% of less HP, so it's quite decent. Mana Rampage is also a good one because it will increase your attack by 6%, although your mana consumption will increase by 8%. You won't have that many mana issues unless you are spamming skills, but it's good if you see that you don't need mana as much. Reawakening is a very good one. It reduces your skill cooldown by 8%. Monarch's Domain, I don't see shadows as strong. I don't think shadows are that powerful. So using this skill, it's not much of a benefit in my opinion. At least not right now. Then Candiaro's Blessing, that one is not good. You have Tenacity. Tenacity is not good. You want to try and dodge as much as you can with Sung Jinwoo, so Tenacity won't be a good one. Then you have the Kasaka Steel series. That one is not good. Daily quest completion is a very good one. It gives you an immortality benefit. So when you're about to die, it will make you immortal for 4 seconds. So, and then after that you will recover certain amount of HP. So this one is really good for stage usage. Then you have the speed one. I don't really use that one, so cannot comment there. Bloodlust is a decent one, so you can have attack and defense decrease. That's quite decent. Then you have Pulverize. Pulverize is okay for doing damage to breaking enemies, but I barely use it. I rather use the ones that I will mention below. So after this, then okay, you have titled Wolf Assassin. This is very situational. The only stage where I've used it is in the Ants one, so I wouldn't say it's a good one. This one also not a good one in my opinion. Demon Slayer is a really good one if you want to get mana. Chains of Blood is also a good one because it increases your attack depending on your loss HP ratio. Of course you don't want to get hit, but there are moments where you want to do this sort of risk to get a reward, so it's worth it in that case. Boss Layer is really good against bosses, so once you reach the boss stage you will have a 12%, well this is the epic version, you have a 12% damage increase, and then your cooldown of your dash is increased by 20%, but that's not such a con. You don't dash as much so that you will lack dashes. Yeah. Double-edged sword is a good one if you want to, well, if you can survive at least a couple of hits, and your team as well, because this is situational on the stage. It is a 12% attack benefit, but it also increases the opponent's attack by 12%. Then you have Swiftness. Swiftness is okay if you are missing dashes, so that's convenient for that. HP Extraction is not as good as I thought it would be. You want to have skills that are good for the boss as well, because the boss is the main problem to solve in stages. Then you have Weakness Detection. This is one of the best ones. So you will get elemental weakness increase by 12%. If you have the right weapon and the right skills with the right element, this is really good for that. Fatal Strike I rarely use. I tested it a couple of times, but in my opinion it's not such a great skill to use. I already have basic skills that do certain break, and also a hunter that has breaking skills which are usually medium, so that usually is good enough to break the boss in time. But maybe we will have content where break gauge is required to break faster or something like this, but right now there's no usage for this skill. And Assassin's Proficiency, I haven't seen a back attack skill which is worth using this skill with. Blessing Stone preference is to use Boss Layer, Double-Edged Sword, and Weakness Detection. These are the three main ones that I use. And then Daily Quest Completion when I feel that the level is going to be too hard. And if I lack any of these three, I would then go for Reawakening, Mana Rampage, Demon Slayer, Chains of Blood, or Bloodlust. Those are the alternative skills I would use in case I didn't have any. And well, last one, Sharp Perception. That would be it. It depends on a case by case, so depending on the ones that you have, those are my suggestions. Weapon selection will vary depending on the element of the stage, but the most general purpose weapons are Plum Flower, Tethys Grimoire, Shadow Scythe, and the Huntsman. After these four SSR weapons, you have a couple of SR weapons which are decent. One is the Radiru family's longbow, then you have Orb of Avarice. Kasaka Venom Fang is quite decent at the start of the game. West Wind is also a good weapon. I'm not sure how good it will be after the nerf, but after that you can see if it's good or not. And then Demon King's Longsword is a bit lackluster, but it will get buffed. So I'm preparing myself to buff that one. After that, I don't think there are many weapons that I would use, but mainly Plum Flower with Scythe is a good combination, or Book with any of the other weapons. Those are really good choices, and usually you just pair them with the right element in most cases. So if you are in a dark stage, you use Plum Flower with Scythe. If you're in a light stage, you can do Huntsman with the longbow, or you can use Huntsman with the Grimoire. It depends on the weapons that you have, but the important thing is to use the ones that have certain elemental advantage, or the ones that you have upgraded the most and have certain abilities that could be useful in any case. Like for example the Tethys Grimoire skills, which are giving increased damage for elemental weakness, so this is a very good general purpose weapon. Or you have things like the Plum Sword, which have a critical hit increase and also skill damage increase, and it has critical hit damage buffs. So these are good general purpose weapons, and you can pair them with the right elemental weapon on almost every stage. For team selection, at the start of the game you won't have a lot of choices, so it is very likely that you will have only a few characters built. I myself at this point have only 5 to 6 characters built, and this is what I play around with most of the time. So I will give you some insight on how I decide. Let's say for example I want to beat Vulcan boss. The first thing I look is at the recommended element. Do I have something that could do damage with this element? Yes. So I will choose Seo as one of the first hunters to pair with in my team, and then the other two should be elements that are not within elemental disadvantage, and that also give you things like increments of damage or increments of attack. These are very beneficial to make the run a bit smoother. So besides Seo, if I had to choose two more, then I will choose Min because it gives me increased damage, and then for the last one I would choose Beast Bite because it has a good attack buff. If I didn't have him, then I would choose something like maybe Bike if I wanted to do a bit more break, or I could use Libora if I wanted to increase a bit more damage.
I'll make this a clean sweep.
Or, well, maybe Choi if I wanted to do something like I want to reach certain total power. For total power, it is important to try and be in the recommended total power. If you cannot, it's also fine, but there are certain benefits to being within the recommended total power. So try to be always at least at there, and if you can't, then it's also fine, you can try the stage and clear it. As for weapon selection, so I've already told you the recommendations, but I will just quickly think about how I would choose the set of weapons for this stage. And I would choose Thetis Grimoire as the main weapon, so slot 1, yes. And then slot 2 would be the Plum Sword. You want to have the main damage weapon as the first slot because it will be the one where you start which we will start using before using ultimates. So that is the benefit of selecting the right element on slot 1. As for shadow selection, right now I have blades as my higher leveled shadow, but I would recommend using Igris. So let's assume I chose Igris as the main shadow. And as for the other two, I would go for Tank because Tank can stun. So if you use him at the right time, you can, let's say, neutralize the boss for some seconds so that you have a less chance of getting hit, and you can perform combos easier that way. And then you have Iron. Iron is a good one because he has a 12% defense decrease for 10 seconds. Yes, you do have Shadow Step, but there will be a lot of cases where you won't be Shadow Stepping and you will be hitting the boss, and this is just an additional defense break that you can add to the run. This is a common pattern that is quite effective, which is basically using a buffing weapon with then using an elemental weakness weapon. So in this case, I've used first the Plum Sword, which is the buffing weapon, and then the Grimoire, which is the elemental weakness weapon. So while I do this, I summon my shadows and I buff myself with one of my hunters and debuff the boss with another of my hunters. When you do this kind of combination, you are stacking buffs and debuffs. It's a very effective mechanism which can be reused, like you can see now. I am reusing the same mechanism again, where I use Plum Sword and then the elemental weakness weapon, while I debuff myself. This stacks a lot of damage, and if you want to guarantee that you do it when the debuff or the buff is applied, you can look at the boss health bar or your health bar. This takes a bit of practice, and it's not about doing it perfectly every time, but if you do it enough amount of times, then it will provide you with enough damage to clear stages. So that's about it for this tutorial about Sung Jinwoo. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. If you have any sort of questions, please write them in the comment section. And if you like this kind of content, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.